light of that, Mr. Speaker, and mindful, as we all are, of the victims of Epstein's appalling crimes, he has been withdrawn as ambassador with immediate effect.
The UK ambassador to the US sacked after new Epstein information comes to light. The US House Oversight Committee releasing more Epstein files showing UK ambassador Peter Mandelson writing a 10-page note to the convicted sex offender, calling Jeffrey Epstein his, quote, best pal. Britain's Parliament also finding that Mandelson believed Epstein's conviction was wrongful and should be challenged. That was his initial conviction some years ago.
Oh boy, now there's another set of new information that Bloomberg has obtained, including thousands of emails from Epstein's Yahoo account. Hundreds of those emails showing a much closer relationship between Epstein and confidant Ghislaine Maxwell than either previously publicly disclosed. The email trove also mentions President Trump in a few instances, mostly after Epstein was facing charges. One email showing Epstein telling Maxwell to remove Trump's name from a list of about 50 politicians. It's unknown what that list is in reference to.
So just to take the Peter Mandelson thing first, because it's quite rare that I get an opportunity to discuss...
Get on your soapbox.
Get on my soapbox about British politics. A brief history of contemporary British politics. The reason that this is, it's a massive story in Britain. And the reason for that is that Peter Mandelson is not some anonymous diplomat. He's been a very central figure in British politics for about 30 years. And one of the reasons this is a massive story over there is because he has critics on both sides. To make a long and rather convoluted story short, Peter Mandelson was very much associated with the process of bringing the British Labour Party from a harder left position into the centre. And he was very closely associated with Tony Blair, the former Prime Minister, in that project. As Mandelson was fighting those sort of internecine battles, he offended a lot of people on the left of the British Labour Party. He got this nickname, the Prince of Darkness, because he would be sort of Machiavellian.
That's Ozzy Osbourne's nickname.
Exactly. So there we go. Perhaps the sole point of parallel between them. So on the one hand, the left of the British Labour movement dislikes him, and on the other hand, the British Conservatives dislike him because he's Labour and because he was very effective. Separate from that, and this goes, I think, to the Epstein matter and to some of Jeffrey Epstein's other friends and associates, Mandelson, for a long time, appears to have had this sort of basically weakness for rich people. He has got in trouble at least a couple of times before. When the Labour Party under Blair was in government, Mandelson had to resign not once but twice. Once because he had obtained a home loan secretly from a wealthy guy who was also serving, Postmaster General is the post in the government, a guy called Jeffrey Robinson. And the second resignation, because Mandelson had intervened to a disputed extent to get a British passport for a very rich Indian businessman. So you put that on top of the stuff with Epstein, and it's a very unflattering picture. I don't know how much attention you paid to some of the documents that came out with Mandelson, but it was pretty grim stuff in the birthday book, you know. There were references to interesting guests, and it's this photo of a very young woman, at least her face is obscured, but in sort of skimpy clothing. Mandelson talks about how great Epstein's private properties were, and then adds yum yum, which kind of is like, oh. So it was all pretty bad. And then these other emails that we mentioned from Bloomberg come out, and that was the end for Mr. Mandelson.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I think the American media, no surprise, did not do a great job of providing the proper context and also not making clear that apparently the communications continued through the allegations and the first set of charges against Epstein, because most of them led with, well, he was fired because his name was in the birthday book.
Right.
He wrote a letter in the birthday book, which was before he was ever convicted on sexual misconduct and the sex trafficking. So I think it would have been smarter for the American media to lead with the fact that he was continuing communications and a friendship with him after those details were known to the public.
Exactly. And in fact, in these emails, one of the emails from Mandelson to Epstein is right before Epstein's about to go to jail for that earlier,
Right.
albeit rather lenient sentence. And Mandelson has encouraged him to be resilient and telling him that his friends will stand by him and stuff. That's terrible political judgment. I have met Peter Mandelson a couple of times over the years in person. He can be quite charming and everything. I mean, he, contrary to the Prince of Darkness reputation, he is actually very affable in person. But there are massive questions about his political and personal judgment because of these kinds of issues. As I say, having already been fired from actual political positions in government and now removed as ambassador, it's really impossible to imagine him having any sort of political career beyond this. I think that's the end of that road.
It certainly seems that way. 2 resignations and then a firing for being friends with a convicted pedophile.
Not great. Not a great record.
Yeah, not a super great record.
No.
I am glad to see that we're getting more of the Epstein information out. There's been obviously a lot of pressure from the Republican base and now the Democrats to get the Epstein files out in the open. And I think the Oversight Committee actually has been doing a good job of getting things like bank records, the birthday book, and releasing all of that information to the public. It's been actually kind of heartening after the initial major bungling of this by the Trump administration.
No, there was a lot of bungling. I also saw just yesterday, I think, Thomas Massey was claiming to be within 1 signature required for that discharge petition. Now, I don't know. I'm not clear. Are the names public, or could he just be claiming that? I'm not 100% sure.
I didn't see a list of names. I think people are kind of frustrated with him right now because there was this hyper focus on that yesterday and what was really a day of mourning for a lot of people.
Sure.
And he was basically saying that Trump calling his discharge position a hostile act was the same as leftists calling people Nazis, and it's the type of rhetoric that leads to shootings like the one that occurred on Wednesday.
Oh, I didn't actually see that.
Yeah, I thought it was in very poor taste.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of those remarks, and those seem very ill-judged in those kinds of circumstance. And we mentioned the Ghislaine Maxwell point. I mean, I think Ghislaine Maxwell is rightly in prison for what she did, and I wasn't a fan of the somewhat suspicious moving of her to a more lenient or softer detention facility. In relation to this suggestion that we now know she was closer to Epstein, we knew they were extremely close.
Yeah,
she's in prison.
Too.
She's in prison because she's a co-conspirator of his. So I'm not sure how much.
How could you be closer?
Yeah, how could you be closer than be literally involved in the same criminal enterprise? So I think that we do have to sort of winnow out or be discerning as to sort of what matters and what doesn't here. As I say, that's no defence at all of Ghislaine Maxwell, who I think was rightly found guilty.
Yeah, that prison you mentioned, Elizabeth Holmes, the sort of infamous healthcare fraudster, was there as well. And I believe it was maybe the New York Post that did a profile of sort of what the prison is like. And there's a lot of exercise time, and it's very low security, and it's almost like a little ranch. And
it's crazy.
I know, it is crazy.
It's just very, very dubious that people like that. I mean, I think I'm not. White collar crime is still crime, and obviously people should still be treated punitively for it. But what Ghislaine Maxwell did is a whole different level to me, and so I think the leniency in her case is even more dubious. Just as we kind of close the circle on this, Amber, do you think there is still, you mentioned that people are glad about the Oversight Committee and all that. Do you think there's still discontent in populist or MAGA circles about the Epstein matter, or do you think that's beginning to fade?
I think it's fading. It hasn't really been top of mind from what I can tell outside of Thomas Massey and perhaps Marjorie Taylor Greene, but amongst the base, I haven't seen it on social media as aggressively. I mean, occasionally there will be comments that I see in response to news stories of people saying, but what about the Epstein files? But I can't imagine that this is going to be some major party splitting issue by the time we get to the midterms, and I don't even think it's at that point now, which is a long way from where we were, just a couple of months ago when there was the announcement that there was no client list.
Soon after, Pam Bondi had said there definitely was.
It was on her desk.
It was on her desk. Not a good moment. The FIFA World Cup is coming to the United States next summer, and fans are already looking to get tickets. Coming up, why Zoran Mandani is bashing FIFA's ticket-selling plans for the big event. Stay with us.